Hi, I'm Greg Schaefer. Welcome to the virtual CISO moment. Ryan Gallagher joins us today. He is the attorney and co-owner at Ritter Gallagher. Ryan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Greg. Good to see you.
I almost tripped over that for a minute. I almost called you Ritter. I think Thomas would have appreciated that much.
I like your intro music.
Yeah, I wish I could say that was me playing the guitar. It isn't.
Yeah.
It's license free, but it tends to get the blood going a little bit. In fact, I sometimes think that I get more excellent feedback for the music than for the actual my content. So yeah, I'd like to start out hearing your story, how you got started in this wonderful information security and privacy space, and recognizing the fact that your path is a little bit different because you're more on the, well, I shouldn't say more, you are on the legal side. And I haven't had the pleasure of really speaking with folks on the legal side much on the podcast, so you might actually be the first. So how'd you get involved in this fun field?
Yeah, I guess go back to college. So I was on the path to Quantico in college. I wanted to be an FBI special agent. Unfortunately for me, the timing wasn't right. About halfway through college, the recession hit. And so, the federal government effectively closed their doors to the agencies and was furloughing people. And it was just kind of a mess. So my move was to leave college, join the Navy in a law enforcement role, and I thought that was kind of a good stepping stone to my goal of working for a federal agency. So I did that, joined the Navy, was stationed in D.C. all 4 years of my first enlistment, and being stationed in D.C. kind of turned me off from federal work. Right, it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and I decided then that wasn't really, the path that I wanted to take. But in doing, in my time in the service, I was in a law enforcement role. I was in the criminal investigation division. So I was kind of shopped out to a NCIS resident unit in DC. And a lot of what we were doing, a lot of the investigations that we were handling involved forensic work, right? And that was really eye-opening for me. I just kind of, that was my opportunity to really begin to understand the value of data and information, more on the law enforcement side, but also generally, right? And that was also about the time that cryptocurrency came on the scene, and you had Silk Road, and so that kind of sparked the interest. And when I was in DC, knowing that I wasn't going to pursue federal law enforcement, then it was kind of well, what the heck am I going to do now? Knowing, I had the GI Bill and I had finished my degree while I was in the service, my undergrad degree. I got out and went to law school, right? That's kind of a lot of people's default, right? You go to business school, law school, and kind of see what's next. And in my time in law school, I had some really good professors that were kind of, we didn't have any courses, but we had some professors who were really big into the data privacy space and kind of pushed some students to look at that. And my first summer, I worked for a firm where I met my eventual and now partner, Thomas Ritter, who was really kind of getting into that space, and we developed a good relationship. And so that's what I decided I wanted to do. My first or second year of law school, I kind of focused on that goal, right? I wanted to work in cybersecurity and privacy. After law school, I went back to school to get a master's at NYU in cybersecurity risk and strategy. Excellent program. Can't tout them highly enough. And then here I am. So I left school, got a job in incident response, doing breach work, all day, every day. Did that for 3 or 4 years, and then eventually kind of expanded my practice, moved into the more pre-breach or compliance, regulatory side, and that's where we focus heavily on now. We still do the incident response work, but now we're, I'm a lot more fulfilled when I have the opportunity to get ahead of these things, right, and help our clients prepare for the bad day instead of respond to the bad day, right?
Well, let's talk about that for a moment. In the small and mid-sized business world, obviously, incident response is a critical for them as well as for the big businesses as well. They face a lot of threats in information security. Some of them are common to the larger businesses. Some of them are more specific to them. From your perspective, and seeing that you're coming from the legal side and the incident response side from your past, what are the one or couple of the more significant threats that SMBs face in the InfoSec and cybersecurity space?
Yeah. At the risk of talking about something that I have to assume a lot of your listeners have already heard, but what we see really, the trend is, big, significant risks around third-party management, right? Third-party risk, I think, is, always has been an issue, but I think now, and the interconnected business landscape that we're in, I think that, companies, particularly small and medium-sized businesses, they do what they can to protect themselves, but they do that they do that to the detriment of looking outside of their walls, right? And we're seeing, when you bring in a third party that has hooks in your network, you should have the contracts in place, right? Especially if you're in a regulated industry, but more often than not, it's just a checkbox, right? And there's really no due diligence around, these third party security program, their insurance coverage, data minimization. These are things that are often overlooked. We're not, who out there is really auditing, their vendors, their MSP, and actually confirming that they are doing what they're saying they're doing. And that's a really big risk for me. And then the other one, of course, is everybody is talking about now is, I think, social engineering. I think, in the short and medium term, that is going to be more of a profound impact on small and medium businesses, because they just don't have the resources or the sophistication to, kind of spread out their security program to really capture all these, this minutia of, how AI is impacting communications and things of that nature. So those are my big two things, right? Third party risk, and then social engineering, I think is we're going to see just really evolve into a major issue for small businesses.
So we get to the third party risk, and you said something that kind of touched something that I know is a big problem out there, where a lot of times it ends up being a check the box type situation. Like the dance in a lot of ways still today is bigger vendor sends out questionnaire to a third party responds yes to all the checkbox there. A lot of times they'll respond with, like, for example, to use multi-factor authentication. Well, yeah, I get a number on my phone for email, so we use it. But they're not looking at the totality of it.
Where are you using it? Yeah. What system? Yeah.
So we're seeing some more regulatory push there, certainly, like with CMMC, for example, where suppliers are going to be part of the larger companies' audited space, if you will. But from a legal standpoint, how can a small business? What's the best way to make them understand? And I don't know if that's the right way to say it. It's like we will make you understand. We have ways of making you talk. But what's the best way to make them understand that this is, yes, it's a compliance issue, but it's so critically important that you answer these questions truthfully and completely. And that's why I'm asking you specifically from the legal side, how that really makes a difference in how you answer the question. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. I mean, our clients run the gambit when it comes to compliance, right? I mean, so some of them take it very seriously, especially in heavily regulated industries, right? We're talking healthcare, banking, and finance. Anybody dealing with classified government information, right? They tend to be on top of the compliance side, but a lot of businesses don't. It's more of an afterthought, especially smaller startups, right? They're kind of high speed, low drag, right? They're trying to get stuff done, and compliance is just kind of an afterthought. And we can warn until we're blue in the face, but I think what we see a lot of, when we see the light bulb go off most when we're doing a tabletop exercise, right, or training where we really reinforce the potential impact that a security incident can have on your business, even if it's not, something, a failure of yours internally, right? Even if it's not, a system breakdown or security breakdown of your environment. We integrate, these third-party risks into our tabletops routinely. And I think that really helps to illuminate just how badly things can go when you're not doing the little things, right? Doing those audits and asking, more detailed questions to really drill down on, how safe is this other business that is hooked into your network.
A lot of us in the industry, we're practitioners, whether it be if we're more on the technical side as IT security administrators, or a lot of the CISOs that are out there came up through the technical side, and I'm going to count myself in this group. We're not comfortable, maybe is the right word, with regards to all things legal. Like, for example, I hate reading contracts. It's like, I mean, it's that's better for insomnia than SOC 2 reports. Sometimes it seems like the way that they are sometimes, but I understand the rationale for it. But the thing about it, though, is that where I'm trying to get is that as an information security professional, and as you particularly go up the stack, you need to have a whole broad set of skills, or at least understandings. We need to understand business. We need to be able to understand accounting. We need to be able to understand a lot, and including legal. From your perspective, for a security manager or even a CISO type who may be lacking in understanding the legal side, if you will, of information security, what advice could you give them to up their game, so to speak?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, and this is going to sound very self-serving, but have a good partner, right? Have somebody, either internally or externally that speaks the language, right? And I think, Thomas and I see ourselves as really allies to the security professionals, right? We work with CISOs and security leaders, CTOs, CIOs on a regular basis, right? And those are, our role a lot of time is to distill their security program or their, compliance crosswalks or whatever the case is down and give them an actual risk profile, right? Because they can do that on the technical side, but maybe not so much on the compliance or just the general business operational side, right? And so that's a role that we play. Another thing is just, any security professional knows that this is a field of constant learning, right, and improvement. There's no days off when it comes to like keeping up with trends and learning the latest and greatest and the current threats. And so as you're doing that, as you're getting the daily, practice updates or the flyers, the messengers for, what's going on in your field, right? Add the business stuff to that, add the legal component to it, I had a professor in law school say, I don't care if you're, a finance major or you're going to work in the industry, you should be reading the Wall Street Journal every day just to, understand the language better, right? And understand the speak. And I think that would serve a lot of security leaders well too, is to kind of just incorporate that into their, routine, continuing education.
Yeah, that's a really good point. The partnership and understanding the language of the other areas. And when you were talking about, first of all, the partnership aspect, what I immediately think about whenever the conversation goes down that path is I have to understand finances, not only as a CISO and then a virtual CISO, with regards to understanding that my job with clients is to not only lower their risk, but to also do it in a cost-effective manner. I have to understand that. And particularly with smaller businesses, they don't have unlimited budgets, but also in my own business, you can't run a successful business if you don't understand finance. But I'm not an accountant, and I have an accountant that does some of the more minutiae stuff. I mean, I can add stuff to our accounting system, and a lot of times I add it wrong. Yeah. So having a partner, I think, definitely does work. And so you you work with both businesses who don't have security folks and do have security folks?
Yeah, that's right. Everything from, like a one person IT shop all the way to, very sophisticated security teams for, major brands.
And what's some of the maybe top two, if you will, like issues that you see with small and mid-sized businesses as far as from the governance perspective? Again, I know we talked about threats and challenges just a moment ago, but let me explain where I'm going. A lot of times where I see challenge in small businesses is from a governance perspective. They kind of put information security under IT, and there's always a conflict of interest there. Do you see similar challenges with small and mid-sized businesses, and if so, how do you navigate through them?
That's a tough one, right? Because it boils down to resources,
Mm-hmm.
and unfortunately, security is sometimes pretty far down the list, and I think that small businesses are a little complacent when it comes to security because they may have an insurance policy, right? And we've all heard the phrase, the first one's free. But again, don't really, if they haven't experienced a critical ransomware incident or, a massive data corruption issue, or a privacy incident that, leads to notifying your hundreds of thousands or millions or however many customers you have, right? If you haven't lived that, you don't understand the ramifications of it. And so I think, again, getting in front of the decision makers and really laying out the risk, right? And sometimes the technical folks aren't very adept at that. Sometimes the business folks aren't very good at that. Sometimes the legal folks aren't very good at that. But when you have the right people in place and you can, kind of bring those parties together and have the conversations and really drill down on the actual risk and then present that to your board or your, executive leadership team or your decision makers, that's where we really see some traction when it comes to, apportioning, funds or resources to, the security team or the security program.
The other item that you mentioned as far as cyber information security threats is related to social engineering. And I don't think social engineering will ever go away. Social engineering has been, pre P.T. Barnum days, I mean, it's a con is a con, and it's just a different way of how to do it. But you mentioned AI, and I was going to ask the standard question about, well, how do you deal with like AI phishing emails and all that? And I think we all realize that it is harder to deal with that because they're better crafted. We can't just say nowadays, it's like, well, look for misspellings and that sort of thing. Yeah. But it got me thinking, and here I am back again thinking about the legal side and contracts and information security. And I am just going off the top of my head right now, thinking out loud. Let's just say I got a contract that comes in. And I am not good at reading contracts, let's just say. I think personally I've gotten a lot better with it, but let's just say I'm not good. And I'm like, well, why don't I put this in Chat GPT and ask it to analyze it for me? From a legal and an information security standpoint, why is that either a good or a bad or both idea?
Well, I think there's good and bad, right? I mean, when we talk about AI, you're either a cup half full or cup half empty kind of person, right? And I think it's really balanced. All of the great, amazing things that AI promises, there's a a counter side to that, right? You can use AI to develop a world-changing vaccine or medicine, but you can also use that same AI to develop a world-destroying virus, right? And I think it's the same with security. And so I think it's really important for businesses to, if they're, if they want to implement AI tools or they have staff that want to use AI, whether it's, a third-party program or something that they develop internally, having a very, very clear policy set around acceptable use and things like that. We've all heard, of companies, sending out their proprietary information, which includes contracts a lot of times, into these programs, and then it's just kind of in the ether, right? We don't know where it is, where it's going, what it can be used for. And so I think really, making sure you not only have the policies in place, but your employees are trained and up to speed and know, what their guardrails are when it comes to using those tools. I would never advise a client to, allow their employees to use, say, a chat GPT to analyze their vendor contracts, say. I think that's just too much information. But, there are ways to do that. You can redact and you can obfuscate and change terms and things like that to make it productive. But again, at the end of the day, I think it just comes down to training and making sure that everybody in the organization is on the same page.
Because there would be a certain liability too, not only if you put information up there that got out, but what if the AI bot comes back with, okay, I analyzed the contract, here's A, B, and C, and it comes back with something that's wrong.
Yeah,
you can't. I don't think. And correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think it's a good defense to say, "Well, ChatGPT said otherwise."
Of course,
that's not going to work. And yeah, let me be clear too. I am not advising folks to actually do that. This is like thinking off the top of my head, what if? And part of that too is even just the act of putting a contract up there where I don't even know if you can redact. Like I'm thinking about CMMC now, where contracts are generally with the federal government are generally considered CUI. Mm-hmm. So you just by action of doing it, you have now breached, unless you have a federally FedRAMP compliant chat, which I don't know. But well, a lot of this is, I start thinking down this path. I start thinking about liability and how stressful it is. And over the course of years and years of being in the industry, it is always challenging. You have to keep up on threats. You have to keep up on tactics, and it can be demoralizing. It can be stressful, and sometimes it seems like information security also attacks. It does attack, but it attracts type A personalities. We want to get things done. We want to get things done right. So I always advise folks that they need to step away from it. What's one of the things, Ryan, that you do to step away from the madness of this world?
Well, yeah, that's a good question. I have a 2-year-old and a 2-month-old.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. So when I'm not working, my time is usually with the family, which is great. Wouldn't change a thing. When I do have a little bit of time, I'm a football fan, college and professional football fan. Like going to games. We're season ticket members for the Titans. I play a little golf. I'm not very good, but I try. I tell people I'm about as good now as I was 20 years ago. So, yeah, I guess those are my two, kind of wind down things.
Well, of course, Titans being in a rebuilding year this year, but you got the ebbs and the flows and all that. So I think maybe sometimes that's a little bit more stressful. But I mean, talking about Nashville sports, look at Vanderbilt this year. Oh my goodness! I mean, they've been a surprise. Bowl eligible, top 25.
Yeah, I'm a big Vol fan, and it's funny. I'm more worried about Vanderbilt at the end of the season than I am Georgia in a couple of weeks. I don't know what happened, but here we are.
Yeah, that's like a once in 100 year type flood type situation. I'm not saying anything bad about Vanderbilt. I'm sorry. Just look at the statistics. So
I'll do it for you. Yeah.
So what about future plans outside of wishing for a better season for the Titans next year? Of course, there's still some time left. They might come back. But what future plans you got for yourself, for the firm, or for whatever?
Yeah. Thomas and I, we're about 6 or 7 months in. We've been practicing the space for a lot of years, but we opened our firm about 6 or 7 months ago, and our immediate goal is really just to get the word out, right? Let people locally and broader, know that we're here, know that we're, offering a service that we're kind of in a good middle ground. I think, a lot of businesses don't have a lot of options when it comes to, security and privacy on the legal side. You can go to the big shops and pay a fortune, for legal work that, is pretty standard at this point, right? Or you can go to a smaller firm like us, where we have the experience, we have the big firm experience, we've been there. But you're going to have more of a hands-on, more responsive, I think, and at the very least, better rates, right? So that's the word we're trying to get out. Another thing is, a lot of people don't, when they think cybersecurity, they don't really think about the attorneys, right? And, a big part of our practice and really our value add is that we don't just help with the general business and legal, issue spotting and risk reduction, right? But we are, a voice for the security team. We will, talk to your security folks, understand, their needs, their concerns, and best, find a way to best present that to leadership to get the ball rolling, right? To get things put in place that the security team really wants. And then kind of the last drum that we've been beating is around privilege. And I know that we've had this conversation, and but I think it's really often overlooked is, when even on the pre-breach side, even on the compliance, and when you're developing a security program, when you're doing the risk assessments and the audits, having attorneys involved in that is really beneficial for the organization, because in doing so, you bring in the technical vendors, you bring in the auditors on behalf of the client in order to provide legal advice to the client, and ultimately what that does is protect all that work under privilege, right? Nowadays, plaintiffs' attorneys are sharks in the water. If you have a notifiable event, chances are nowadays that you're going to get sued, right? And if you're in a regulated industry, especially healthcare, OCR and the regulators, they're going to take a look at you. And what we tell clients often is, even when you're doing in the planning stages, right, get the lawyers involved, couch all that under privilege, because the holy grail for a plaintiff's attorney is getting your risk analyses, your documentation that says, hey, we knew about this vulnerability, or we knew about this deficiency on X date, and then we had an incident 2 or 6 or 12 months down the road and it wasn't fixed, right? And so we want to protect all that. So that's our, immediate is just kind of getting the word out, right? Letting people know we're here. And then longer term is really just, law enforcement background. I think this is the best fit for me, and that we actually feel like we're helping businesses, right? I mean, we're helping businesses, and through helping businesses, we're helping people. And so we want to do that on the biggest scale possible, right? Of course, we're business owners, we want to make money, but at the end of the day, we get a lot of satisfaction, a lot of fulfillment out of, doing the tabletop exercises and seeing the light bulbs go off, and really, bolstering these security programs, and helping people sleep better at night, and getting people, better prepared for, the worst day of their professional lives.
Yeah, I love the servant attitude, and the really, there is no greater payment, if you will, than understanding you're making a difference. It's hard to see that sometimes, in particularly like earlier in career, but really looking back for me, because I'm not retired yet, but I think about it sometimes, some days more than others, but it's really the satisfaction of actually making a difference. So Ryan, I so much appreciate your time. I always love talking with you. You always bring some great perspective. I could go on. I was about to ask another question about documenting and this and that, but I know we're running out of time, so maybe I have to bring you back, or maybe I'll save that for when I talk with Thomas later, but really appreciate your time.
Yeah, let's do it again. Thanks for having me, Greg.
I want to remind everybody, you can catch me on Now Media TV on Tech Talk every Thursday at 4 Central. You can get that if you don't get it on your cable system. You can get it on Roku. We talk about all things technical. Sometimes we talk about things in space too. So, and until next time, stay secure.